Earlier, I asked U.S. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois, who sits on the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in the House of Representatives, for his take. Congressman, always great to have you on our show. You sit on the House Intelligence Committee. What have you heard about this news?
Well, as of now, I know what's in the published reports, namely that it appears that an Embraer jet fell out of the sky in areas that are north of Moscow. I saw a video of it, and others are reporting that an anti-aircraft missile actually brought the Embraer jet down, and that Mr. Prigozhin was on that plane along with his number two, Mr. Utkin. And so I think we're seeing mafia politics at play here, where it looks like Mr. Putin is, I guess, serving revenge, as some say, best served cold.
Last month, when the CIA director, Bill Burns, was asked about why Yevgeny Prigozhin was still alive, this is what he said.
Putin is someone who generally thinks that revenge is a dish best served cold. So he's going to try to settle the situation to the extent he can. But again, in my experience, Putin is the ultimate apostle of payback.
So, Congressman, I know that you're not at liberty to disclose, intelligence briefings that you get on the House Intelligence Committee, but was there a sense in U.S. intelligence that Prigozhin was indeed not safe and that essentially you were waiting for the other shoe to drop?
I think that the feeling is largely probably yes. Of course, we don't have any evidence to document this at this time, but I think that over the course of the months and weeks to come, I think we'll find this out. I have to say that I don't think that the story necessarily ends here. You know, Mr. Prigozhin and Mr. Utkin were the number one and number two leaders of Wagner, but there are tens of thousands of members of Wagner, many of whom are in the Russian and Belarusian area, and of course, many who are in the Middle East and in Africa. And so we don't know how they will react, but I think that at this point, we know that, probably Mr. Prigozhin is dead, although we haven't received confirmed reports of that, but I think it's likely the fact.
What do you think this says about the wider power struggles? I mean, you said these are mafia dynamics that we're seeing in Russia, these power struggles between security forces and Russia's defense.
Well, I think that, things are not as stable in Russia as one might otherwise believe. I think that, that mutiny and the insurrection, though it was short-lived, did point out a couple things. One, as you remember, Mr. Prigozhin on his Telegram channel basically talked about how the real reason for this war in Ukraine had to do with money, had to do with certain interests in Russia, seeing it in their best interests financially to actually commit this criminal invasion. And I think the second thing that that mutiny revealed is that there are a lot of people in Russia who were willing to go along with Prigozhin, potentially, or at least were waiting on the sidelines to see how things would unfold. I don't know that their loyalties to Putin are as concrete as we might have thought before.
And Congressman, final question. Obviously, as you said, there are many questions being asked about the Wagner fighters themselves, where their loyalties lie, where they are at the moment. What do you think this means for the war in Ukraine?
We don't know how many of those Wagner fighters are still in Ukraine, but to the extent that they might be deployed in and around Ukraine, again, we don't know where their loyalties lay. Certainly, those who went with Prigozhin toward Moscow seem to vote with their feet. But even for those who did not, we don't know how they view this particular incident. At the end of the day, Mr. Prigozhin paid them a lot of money, employed them for a long time, formed relationships. And so we have to see, how they view this and whether any action is taken, as a consequence of what's happened today.
Congressman, really good to get your insights on this developing story today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.